Hi, I'm Cheryl Jackson. Welcome to Your Voice. When we were growing up, it was not unusual to see kids playing with toy guns, and there was no debate about it. But today the issue is controversial, and the experts are divided. Opponents say toy weapons desensitize children and send a message that violence is okay. Advocates say that it's natural for boys to want to play fight, and that stopping them from doing so may be doing more harm than good. Who's right? Here to duke it out, figuratively speaking, are Jacques Brodeur. He's a media educator who helped launch a campaign against war toys. Also in studio with us is Audette Shepard, chair of United Mothers Against Violence Everywhere. She lost her son Justin to gun violence in Toronto 7 years ago. And joining us on the phone is therapist and educator Michael Gurian. He's written several books on gender issues, including The Good Son, Shaping the Moral Development of Our Boys and Young Men. His most recent book is Leadership and the Sexes. If you have a question for our panel, you can type it in the Ask the Expert box below this video screen. You can also call us toll-free at 1-888-891-1195. If you'd like to talk to other parents, you can join our chat, which is going on right now. Just type in a username and go. And don't forget to vote in our weekly poll. Welcome, everybody. Audette, Jacques, hi, Michael.
Hi there.
Hi. Jacques, what do you think of kids playing with toy guns?
I know that kids who play with toys have wanted these toys to get fun and to practice and learn some things. If they play, for example, with a fire truck, what do as they play with it, as they drive it in the sand or in the grass? They think, gee, I'm coming to save people from fire. If they play with the suitcase here for playing doctor, with all the equipment and watching their little brother and practicing, what do? They think, gee, I'm helping somebody to heal. But if a kid plays with this toy here and points it at your head, what is he doing into his brain? He's either thinking, gee, am I powerful because I get the trigger here, I can kill this person? Or is he looking at your head thinking that it might explode and it should be fun to get it? My opinion is that this is not something good to let children do.
Okay. Michael, do you agree with Jacques?
Well, I think it's a tough thing to, I would love to agree with him in theory, but I would have to say a couple things. One is that there's really no factual basis for arguing that because a kid plays like I did Cowboys and Indians when I was a kid, I'm 50, or now they play Transformers or whatever they play, that leads to more violence. And in fact, there are places you can go in the world, many of your viewers will have been to. For instance, you can go to a place like Japan. You can see that there's an incredible amount of violence in the video games, an incredible amount of violence in the comic books, etc. But the murder rate is incredibly low there. So there have been, it's very much studied, it's very much discussed, and no one involved in helping raise children wants children to be violent. But because they play with a toy gun, we can't find a link between that and violence. If they observe their father shooting their mother, that we can link to violence. But playing with a toy gun, we can't find a link for that yet.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Audette, your son was killed by a gun. Can you tell me what happened?
Justin was one of the most promising basketball players in Canada, and he had just gotten a scholarship to go to Maryland. And he was at home one Friday. Someone called him. He said he'd be back in 10 minutes, and Justin was found shot to death, 2 shots to his head. I mean, that was the most devastating thing that ever happened in my life. I'm still trying to, cope with the loss of that child because of a gun. Somebody using a gun to destroy another human being.
And have you ever found out who did it?
They have never made an arrest in Justin's murder. But I've come to the place in my heart where I believe that there will be justice for Justin, and my expectations no longer from the police, and it's no longer from the community who probably knows exactly what happened. My expectation comes from God.
Were guns a part of his life that you knew of in any way?
When Justin was younger, he played with little water guns, you know, and yeah, and to right now to say that was a mistake, it's difficult to say, because I know when I was young, I used to be a tomboy, and as a matter of fact, I thought I lived on the Ponderosa, and I was little Joe.
Right. Yes.
So you know,
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But at that time, the times were different. I knew that was just a toy. I knew this was not, you know, anything more. But the environment that these kids are growing up with, you seeing the gangster gun play as being glamorized. You seeing all this stuff. Kids do become desensitized to the reality of death. They think if you look at a video game and this guy drops down and then he gets back up again, they tend to think that death is not real, you know, and that to me is something that we need to address.
So do you think now there's a connection between toy guns and real violence, and maybe there wasn't before? Like, do you think there's a greater connection now?
I definitely believe so, because you've sensed the power. And when you're seeing it all around, you've seen it on the video games, you've seen it in these gangster movies and stuff, you know, you kind of, your mind kind of leads to the kind of power that you see exhibited on that, and you want to be part of that.
All right.
And, you know, these are bad times. These are drastic times. And I think for drastic times, we need to take drastic measures and be so careful about what we're allowing our kids to use and allowing the things that are in their mind. You know, they say that a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
All right. Audette, we have a question here already from Anna in Montreal. Does it make a difference how real the gun looks? If it looks like a toy, will my child make the same connections to real guns? Audette, what do you think of that? Does it matter? I mean, if it looks like a real toy, do you think the kids make the connection, or?
I think they make a connection. A gun, you know, they think it's a gun. And, you know, when they see what guns, you know, what guns do, and you see the power that you know, is that you can exhibit when you use a gun, I think that connection is made.
All right.
Yeah.
Michael, what do you think? Is there a connection between the kinds of toy guns that kids play with and whether there's any connection to any later violence? Does it matter what it looks like?
Well, once again, we don't really have a link between playing with toy guns and later violence. So I couldn't really respond to that from a professional point of view, because there isn't a link. So
right.
it wouldn't matter if the gun looks real or is a squirt gun. What I'm hearing from this dialogue is that folks are saying, well, you know, if you play with guns, you're going to become violent. We just really have to be very careful before we say that. It would be like saying, well, if you play a video game in which you crash cars, you're going to go out and crash cars. And this we would just keep doing, right? Ad infinitum. We would look at every single situation and say, well, if you imagine that, so if you draw a dark picture, like a lot of boys go through a phase where they really love drawing dark, gloomy, you know, Return of the King, Fellowship of the Rings kind of artwork. Well, if you do that, then you're going to go out and become depressed. We just got to be very careful with saying this stuff. And I, of course, feel incredibly sympathetic to anyone who has been hurt. But if the question is, does playing with a squirt gun or playing with a gun that looks real cause you to become violent, I would have to say no. The violence is caused by people observing violent people. That would be a much clearer causation.
Oh, okay. Jacques, let's talk for a minute about your campaign, because you started a campaign against war toys. What do you mean by war toys? What is that?
Well, we offered in 1986. That's an experience. That's an accident in my life. We offered in all the kids in all schools in our school district, close to Quebec City, Charlebourg, and we asked all these kids to bring to their school and give us their war toys. And we promised that we would use these war toys to build a monument for peace. And we received a huge amount of war toys.
What do you mean by war toys?
Guns,
right.
Shotguns, and all characters that are broadcasted in TV programs that are very violent. And we received, the most two popular toys that we received were G.I. Joes and Transformers. After receiving these toys, we thought, gee, the war toys today have the same name as a TV program. So we checked the TV programs. G.I. Joe was carrying 84 acts of aggression per hour. Transformer was carrying 81 acts of aggression per hour.
So you were really looking at the connection between television and the toys and actions of these kids.
After getting the toys, we started looking.
Right.
And we understood that the marketing industry had taught the Hasbro company that made these two toys, had taught them how to build a program that would make a young boy, mostly boys, be captured by the script of the program. Now, if this program is aired every day, and this kid every day in September, in October, and in November, Michael, I hope you'll listen to this, and at the end of November, when Santa Claus would phone to Washington, or Quebec City, or Toronto, or San Francisco, the kid would want to get this toy that was marketed to him by the toy industry.
So what is the problem with that?
It's the violence that was used in the program that got the kid captured by the program.
And you're worried then that the children will become more violent by playing with those toys?
I'm not only worried. I know that there are, Michael, over 1,000 studies that link what kids watch and how they behave.
Okay, well,
there's been experience, short-term, mid-term, and long-term experience, 15 years, and there's a result. We see the result.
Okay, well, that's a slightly sort of, is that a different issue, Michael, when we're talking about the connection between television and violence acted out later, as opposed to just playing with toys?
Yeah, there's a lot of things getting mixed together here.
Right.
The studies, what the studies indicate, and like you mentioned, one of my books, The Good Son, this is also in A Fine Young Man. We've gone through, the Gurian Institute has gone through this research because we're very concerned with kids sitting in front of screens for hours a day, with you know, even at 2 years old, sitting in front of screens. That stuff is dangerous to brain development. And if a kid is playing 4 hours of a violent video game at 10 years old per day, that is dangerous to brain development. That's as dangerous to brain development because of the screen time as it is because of the aggressive and violent imagery. So that's a whole other topic, I think. And yes, we want to be very vigilant with our children and not let them watch too much violence, not let them absorb too much violence through the screen. But the initial question was, if boys are out in the backyard or kids are out in the backyard playing with toy guns, is that going to lead to violence? If that's the question, then the answer is it probably will not.
What does the research say about that, Michael?
The best research where you can say, okay, these are double-blinded studies, we actually really can see this, is that when kids watch violent video games for a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes afterwards, sometimes up to a half hour, they are more physically aggressive with each other. Not that they're violent, they don't go kill each other because they played the violent video game, but they are more physically aggressive. But then after a half hour or so, that dissipates. And what that raises is really what I think is the crux question for every parent. We should not mind aggression. Aggression is actually very natural, and it's our job to help our children to manage their aggression. Aggression is not the same thing as violence. Violence is the attempt to destroy another individual, another system, you know, in other words, country destroying a country, or another person's core self. That's violence. Aggression is the attempt to manipulate, exploit, or control another person. Well, we're all aggressive in our own subtle ways, but hopefully we're not all violent. And there is no proof that a kid out in the backyard playing with these G.I. Joe toys is going to become violent. There's bare proof that for a few minutes he'll become more physically aggressive and push people more physically. That's it.
Okay. Why do you think we're talking about this now so much? I mean, as you said, and I know it's true for me too, you know, 30, 40 years ago, we were playing with toy guns and cap guns and cowboy hats and holsters. And I mean, honestly, nobody said a thing about it. And none of us has grown up to, well, I shouldn't say that, but, you know, in my own family, none of us has grown up to be violent people. So why is this an issue now?
Well, it's an issue because the world has become very violent, and folks are looking for, we're all looking for, believe me, I mean, I'm doing research every day, we're all looking for answers as to why this is going on. The truth, I really think, is that we have a number of invasions of normal brain development that are going on, and playing with toy guns is not one of them. We have toxins that the human brain is taking in. Kids are taking in toxins. We have higher incidence of all sorts of brain disorders, including the antisocial personality disorder, which is the one that tends to be violent. We have an exponential increase in that personality disorder over the last 20 years or so, and simultaneously anorexia, bulimia, ADD, Asperger's, So we're all trying to figure out why all of these brain disorders are rising, especially in the last 20 years or so. And so the increase in violence, which is a medical condition, the increase in violence is part and parcel of an increase in a number of these disorders. And I really think we need to look closely, even though we all are scared by everything from Columbine to the war in Iraq. We all have a right to be very scared because there's a lot of violence going on. There are a lot of violent people, religious, non-religious, attacking each other. But I can't really say that the toy guns is what's causing all this stuff. There's something else going on.
Okay, thank you, Michael. We have a question here from Renata in Burlington. Why is it that we rarely see girls playing with guns? Are hormones literally at play here? Is there something in boys that makes them want to play violently? If so, should we be depriving them of this?
Okay, it's both hormones.
Michael
it's
first, and then Jacques.
biochemistry and brain development.
Sorry about what did you say, Michael? Again, it's hormones.
It's both biochemistry and brain development. So it's both hormones, which is the brain chemicals. Females have more oxytocin, which is a bonding chemical. Males have more testosterone, which is an aggression chemical. So, and this is true of all cultures all over the world. So you do tend to see, even in the most nonviolent cultures, you still see the males being more physically aggressive. This is how they bond with each other. And people forget that often when they look at, like in kindergartens or in preschools, and they watch the boys karate kicking each other or bumping each other, and they think, oh, that's violent. Actually, it's not. It's how the boys are bonding, and they bond through aggression play, and part of the reason is that they're driven more by an aggression chemical. Also, the right side of the male brain is formatted toward spatial and physical, and we also call it visual graphic. The right side of the female brain, much more of the right side of the female brain, is verbal emotive, so produces more words and links more words to emotions.
Okay.
So we do tend to see, again, all over the world, that males are more spatial in their play. That means they like to pick up objects and move them around in physical space, and that it would include guns. You put that together with their aggression, they're going to tend to play more and bond more. Remember, they're trying to bond with each other through this aggression play. Females will tend to bond more by sitting and looking each other in the eye and talking, and they have more verbal centers for that, and they have more bonding chemistry for that.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Jacques, you have something to say?
I'm really sad to hear Michael say things like he said. Girls have been culturally taught by advertising to become nice and attractive, and they have been taught by the marketing industry to seduce people around them to get what they want. Boys have been culturally trained to become aggressive and to hit other people. When in my school, Michael, and in your son's school, when he gets hit in the face by somebody who's doing kickboxing for fun, even if the kid is doing it for bonding, like Michael said, for me, it's an aggression.
Okay.
It's an act that cannot be allowed in the school, and the teacher has to find a way to channel the behavior of this kid into something more socially acceptable.
Like? What would you suggest?
Like helping other people, like carrying things for others, like being cooperative with his group of friends. We don't need to culturally train boys to keep hunting and killing and hitting other people.
But those activities that you just mentioned, how would that get out the aggression that they may have, if they do?
Well, what we teach, what I'm doing, what I've been doing for the last 10 years, is to teach young boys how to become brave. And they all want to become brave. The most aggressive kid in the school where I go, they want to become brave, but nobody has ever taught them what should I practice to become brave.
I see, okay.
So we give them exercise to do, and they love to practice becoming brave. Becoming brave has been taught to them by the marketing industry that if you're brave, you need something strong to impose your desires onto other people's behavior. And Michael, you have to know also that the marketing industry targeting children has been moving from $100 million per year in 1983, and in 2006, we had $12 billion per year targeting children with role models that are antisocial. I'm sorry to be so long.
Audette, what do you think?
Well, see, I like to draw back to the idea of the aggression being played out through kids, because I remember in my day when I was young, we fought with our fists, and if we got into a fight, we would fight with our fists. Now, because of the new this whole media blitz and this whole totally different environment, and as he talks about being brave is not fighting with your fists anymore. Being brave is is being the power behind a gun. The guns have become so glamorized, and the guns have become the weapons of mass destruction, because when people want to hurt people now, they don't want to just hurt them by just getting into a fist fight. They want to kill them, because they don't think, they don't value the very essence of life. They don't think about, if I shoot this person is dead, this person is not coming back. And it also has a ripple effect to this person's family. So to me, I think that the mindset about the using guns, that's where the problem is.
Do you think children are able, though, Audette, if they are playing with toy guns or other weapons, swords or something, do you think children are able to make a distinction between fantasy and real life?
Well, we used to be able to, in the olden days, but now I think it's so difficult for them to
what
make that
changed,
difference.
Do you think?
I think the acceptance, it seems like it's okay. All these movies with the guns, the media, the glamour, the
Video
gangster,
games,
the rap, and things like that. So it gets into your head, and it seems okay, to use these weapons, because here is 50 Cent saying, "Get rich or die trying," and he's got a gun, pointed at. So that kid, it's hard to make that distinction sometimes.
How do you think it makes them feel then to be playing with these things?
Well, they feel that they have the same power that they can see exhibited on these video games or on the media and these types of things.
I want to say something about the difference between reality and fiction. In the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled out a decision against the Irwin Toys Company. In 1989, the Supreme Court of Canada wanted to hear and to listen to the evidence showing the link between the power of the marketers and the capacity of children to make a distinction between what is advertising and what is reality. And 83 pages decision by the Supreme Court of Canada. Michael, you need to read that. And here's what they got as an evidence. The capacity for a child to make a distinction between fiction and reality is a long process that starts around the age of 7 and should be completed at the age of 13. So that's why the Quebec government, still to this day, and since 1976, has been forbidding, making illegal advertising to children under 13. And the use of violence by this industry is simply a shame.
Okay, let's take a question here from Shireen in Toronto. My son's kindergarten teacher has a strict policy of no weapons in class. He's made guns and swords out of connecting blocks and gotten into big trouble for it. He's not very happy in her class now. Is her no weapons rule common in elementary schools? Michael, why don't you answer that question for me? Is this a common thing?
Yeah, I think what's happened, and it's I think we're sort of seeing it happening in the dialogue in the last 5 minutes or so, and it leads to these zero-tolerance policies. Huge leaps are made because everyone agrees that we don't like violent marketing to kids. Everyone agrees we want our kids to be brave in ways that go beyond hitting someone in the face. We all agree with those things. And so since we all agree with those things, a leap is made in these classrooms that, therefore, aggression and violence are the same thing, and any physical aggression is ultimately going to lead to violent danger. So teachers who are not trained in how the male brain works, they don't really understand the biochemistry, they just say, look, I just got to have a peaceful classroom, so I'm going to have a zero tolerance policy. What they don't realize is, first of all, that that the child actually needs them to help direct aggression in healthy ways and away from violence, that boy actually needs that mentoring from that teacher. The teacher doesn't realize it. The teacher tries to shut it all down. The boys don't like going to school. So in a class of 20 or so, let's say it's 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, there's 3 or 4 of them who are very active and who are trying to bond in this way and trying to learn in this way. They get shut down, and on this goes. And by the time these kids are in middle school, junior high, secondary school, they absolutely hate school. And most of them are boys, and most of them know very well that their K through 6 teachers did not understand them and thought there was something defective about them. And some of this stuff is coming because we all care so much about kids. We don't want them to be bad people. So we're shutting down absolutely everything we can see that resembles aggression. And, of course, we're losing a generation of boys in our school.
Well, Michael, tell me, what's your response to this? The Ministry of Education in the UK has recommended that toy guns and other weapons be put back into nursery schools.
Right. What they're doing is they're looking at the research, and they're seeing that they're seeing a couple things. One is they got to create environments at the young years. So we're talking about toddler, through about first grade, second grade, third grade. They got to create environments these boys are going to like, because these boys are dropping out of school later. And as you know, in Canada, in the U.S., in England, in fact, the whole industrialized world, boys are dropping out. They don't like school. School is not set up well for them. Now, of course, many boys are succeeding, but statistically, the largest dropout rates are these males. So a lot of places are looking back at the brain research and saying, well, if we look carefully at this, we can see that aggression is aggression and that violence is violence. And we can put an environment together that could include these toys, these spatial mechanical toys, these aggression toys, aggression play,
Okay.
and allow them to do it in a careful, right way.
Thank you, Michael.
Go ahead.
We're actually out of time, Michael. I have to stop you there.
That's right. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. My guests have been Jacques Brodeur, Audette Shepard, and Michael Gurian. For more resources on this topic, including research, articles, and links, go to tvoparents.com. Click on your voice and this show topic. Remember, you can watch a repeat broadcast of this program Sunday night at 6 p.m. on TVO. And you can watch all our shows anytime online at tvoparents.com. Next week, we're giving you a second chance to watch our program on brilliant children. We want our kids to reach for the top, but are they all capable of genius? The best and the brightest, next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, online at tvoparents.com. I'm Cheryl Jackson. See you soon.